In this video, I'm going to share with you how to be 5 for 5 in your fight against MS. Don't turn away because all that starts right now. Hey! Howdy! Thanks for learning about MS with me, Aaron Boster. Today's video is an extension of a series I've been doing on self-advocacy and on living your best life despite having MS. The first video in the series really focused on goal setting, personal long-term goal setting, and also MS goal setting. The second video, the last one I just did, was about kind of operationalizing that, like how we actually put into clinical practice and management of attacks, chronic symptoms. And now we're turning our attention to the big daddy. And this is disease modification, changing the natural history of MS. The word natural history is a doctor word, which means if I don't do anything to help you, what happens? And untreated MS, and for that matter, undertreated MS, is a nasty animal. And it's the leading cause of neurological disability amongst young people outside of trauma. And we want to do things to change that natural history, to not allow you to let MS just run its course. And this is where being 5 for 5 in your fight against MS really comes into play. So there are 5 things that I think we need to be doing all the time to alter this disease process. And I'm going to go through them with you right now. Number 1 is to not smoke stuff. You heard me right. We don't need to smoke stuff. Smoking carbon-based stuff, whether that be tobacco or cannabis, taking a carbon-based, lighting it on fire, and then the smoke billowing off, you suck that in. Sucking in smoke is super pro-inflammatory. It is pro-inflammatory to your lungs, but it's pro-inflammatory to your blood vessels. It's pro-inflammatory to your brain and spinal cord. And it is a great way to make MS worse. Turns out that if you smoke, it doubles the likelihood of developing MS, which is a very scary statistic. A scarier statistic is that if you have MS and you smoke, you can speed up the disease by nearly 50%, which is terrifying. Now, the good news is, if you don't smoke or if you quit smoking, you can slow that back down. And so one of the major things that I need us to do if we're going to live our best life despite having MS, if we're going to strive to be 5 for 5 in our fight, number 1 is to not smoke stuff. I include cannabis. Now, in Ohio, I am a medical marijuana recommender, and I find that medical cannabis can help lots and lots of symptoms associated with MS, but I don't want you to smoke cannabis. I want you to use an edible or a topical or a tincture or maybe a vape, but not analog blunts, cigarettes, joints, etc. Now, there's a larger discussion to be had about don't smoke stuff because really smoking is a cardiovascular risk factor. And it turns out that any unchecked cardiovascular risk factor can make you get worse faster in the setting of neurological state and MS. Let me rephrase that so it's clear. If you have untreated cardiovascular risk factors, you will get worse faster in the setting of MS. This includes things like uncontrolled diabetes. This includes uncontrolled high blood pressure. So if you have MS and your blood pressure is running high, you're going to end up more disabled at the end of your life if you don't control that blood pressure. Similarly, if you have morbid obesity, there was a really disturbing paper that just came out that demonstrated that people impacted by MS that are overweight have a faster progression. We need to look at all of these cardiovascular risk factors, and we need to identify ones that we can work on and strive to do that so that you can live your best life despite having MS. Remember, don't smoke stuff. Real quick before we go on, do me a solid favor. If you like this video, would you give it a thumbs up, please? Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Those 2 actions teach the YouTube algorithm that you really like this content and help push it out so more people impacted by MS can benefit. Thank you. Number 2 in our quest to be 5 for 5 in your fight against MS is to exercise as part of your lifestyle. Now, I want to unpack that sentence. Doing something as part of your lifestyle means there's no reward for doing it. You don't get a gold star. And there's also no punishment if you don't do it, like you have to go in the naughty corner or time out or something. Doing something as part of your lifestyle means it's integrated into what you do, and it's just part of your everyday life. I'll give you an example. I have a lifestyle of showering in the morning. I like to shower before I go to work so that I don't stink in front of my patients and my team members. It's part of my lifestyle. I don't send out a tweet, hey, I just took a shower. I don't send out a Facebook post, be like, my shower was awesome. I just shower. And if for whatever reason I wasn't able to shower one morning, no harm, no foul. I don't go to work all downtrodden that I wasn't able to shower. I would just shower that night or maybe the next day. So be it. Showering is just something that's part of my lifestyle. I need exercise to be part of your lifestyle. I need you to identify a form of exercise that you don't hate. Here's why. People impacted by MS that exercise as part of their lifestyle end up less disabled at the end of their life. Quite literally, the data is really solid. Exercise slows brain volume loss, something that we really have to address in the setting of MS. Exercise markedly improves depression and anxiety, something that many humans have. At the setting of MS, you're twice as likely to experience depression or anxiety. So that's an awesome option for treatment. People impacted by MS who exercise have less spasticity, they have better balance, and they fall less often. Think about this thought exercise. If we cloned you, all right, so there's two of you, one of the two clones, we're going to give chocolate cake and Days of Our Lives TV. So you're going to sit, eat cake, watch TV. And the other clone, we're going to give an elliptical and carrots. And we're going to get back together, say, in 4 years. And we have an out-of-shape version of you who's a little overweight, has a weak core, balance is not very good, but they know a lot about cake and they know a lot about TV. And then we have a version of you that is prehabilitated, in shape, lost extra pounds, strong core, strong legs. And in this scenario with the two clones of you, there's an attack of left leg weakness, an MS attack where the left leg gets weak. This deconditioned version of you is seated in a wheelchair, not able to stand back up. This prehabilitated version of you is limping and aggressively doing physical therapy to get back in the game. Now, I'm not going to insult you and say, which one do you want to be? It's a rhetorical question. But it's intended to make the point that exercising as part of your lifestyle is a key element to living your best life despite having MS. Now, it's not easy to exercise. It's sure hard for me to work a full day and then go home and do anything but sit. And yet I understand how important it is. So I got to make myself do it. And you do too. The secret, I think, is to find an activity that you don't hate. And we have to use a modern adult mentality, not the high school mentality. If you hearken back to the glory days of high school, if you could run 1 mile, well, then you could run 2. And if your friend could run 2, then you could run 4. But if you skipped a day, well, then you just forgot the whole thing. It's kind of an all or none. And that's not very realistic in the modern adult era. When you have family and kids and work and hobbies and a bunch of other things going on, you can't just spend hours and hours exercising. So how do we fit it in? Well, let me give you some examples of some stellar forms of exercise that I have found work very well for adults with multiple sclerosis. If you are ambulatory, walking is an awesome tool. Going for a walk after dinner, going for a walk on your lunch break, going for a walk Sunday morning. You can squeeze in a little bit of walking. There's all kinds of pedometers and Fitbits that'll track your steps. If that helps you, grand. But if you can embrace walking as a form of exercise, then we're on to something. Now, if you tell me, well, Aaron, I walk at work, good job, but that's not what I'm talking about. I want you to dedicate at least one moment during the weekend, 30 minutes, to walk or do some form of exercise. I want you to dedicate 1 to 2 days during the work week, Monday through Friday, when you could commit to 30 minutes of walking or exercise. This is really what I'm looking for, presenteeism. Now, walking isn't for everyone, and some people aren't able to. The water is darn magical in the setting of multiple sclerosis. In the water, you weigh less. And so someone who might not be able to easily move around on land, they can do so in the water. You throw a life jacket on, you're buoyant. You can walk laps that way in the pool. You can do water Zumba. You can do water aerobics. You could swim. The water's fantastic. If you get overheated, the water wicks away the heat. If you're having a bad day of balance and you fall this way, the water pushes you back that way. There's a lot of things that are fantastic about water therapy in the setting of MS. And so if you're looking for a form of exercise that you might not hate, consider doing something in the pool. Other fantastic exercises include yoga. Yoga is superb. And Pilates is also fantastic. One of my personal favorites and one that I find to be very effective in the setting of MS is weightlifting. Now, to frame this, as you're trying to pick out your different exercises or what you might not hate doing, we want to keep 4 things in mind that are key for exercise. Number 1, balance. Balance is very, very important in MS. And so ask yourself, is the activity I'm doing going to help me with balance? If it's yoga, the answer is yes. If it's a recumbent bike, the answer is no. The second thing is cardiovascular endurance, all right, the ticker. And this can be accomplished through lots of different ways. A rowing machine, walking, cycling, stationary bike. Yoga and Pilates are not going to help cardiovascular endurance. The third thing is limb flexibility. Flexibility and stretching is a super important aspect to exercise in the setting of MS. And certain exercises, I'll use yoga again as an example, are really, really good at that, others not so much. The last thing is core strengthening. I'm not talking about big biceps, I'm talking about strong abs and a strong back, strong butt, strong legs and hips. These are going to be very, very helpful. So I'm not looking for one exercise that covers all of those. I just want you to be aware as you're gaming out your exercises, think about which of these 4 things you're focusing on that day. Exercising as part of your lifestyle is a key element to MS. I recognize that it can be hard, and I'll throw one more idea out for you if you're struggling trying to figure out how to get started. Ask for help from a neurophysical therapist. Meeting with a neurophysical therapist can be fantastic. These guys and gals are ninjas at figuring out gait mechanics and what's working and what's not working, and they can literally help you construct a wellness plan. They'll put you through the paces of physical therapy, and when you graduate, they'll send you home with a home wellness program. It's an awesome way to kickstart exercise in the setting of MS. Today, we've covered number 1 and number 2 in being 5 for 5 in your fight against MS. Tune in to the next video when we jump into number 3. Until then, this is Aaron Boster saying be safe and take care.